Hey, I'm Ryan Rosery, and you are watching the Permanent Rain Press.
Hi everyone, it's Chloe with the Permanent Rain Press. Today I am so happy to be joined by Ryan Rosery. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Chloe. Thank you so much for asking yourself.
I'm doing well, and I'm so excited to chat with you about Fear Street Prom Queen. I watched the movie a couple weeks ago now, and it's such a fun watch, and I
hmm
can't wait to dive deeper into it. But before that, what can you share about your background in the arts and what sparked that passion in you?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. It's one of my favorite things to answer. But basically, when I was in the fourth grade, I was watching an episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and it was an episode where Uncle Phil was dancing with baby Nikki, and then Will comes running down the stairs and he yells, "Earthquake!" Because Uncle Phil was a big guy. And so then Uncle Phil looks at Will looks at Uncle Phil, and then Uncle Phil then proceeds to chase Will up the stairs. I thought that was like the funniest thing on the planet. And I remember turning to my mom and my sister and being like, that's what I want to do. I want to be like Will Smith. I want to make people laugh. And then, fast forward to me in high school, a girl broke my heart. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to become famous and make her regret ever doing that to me. And then I was like, oh, wait, don't I want to act? So then that's kind of how I got into acting. But now it's less about the fame and more about the actual joy of the craft and what we get to do.
I think it's funny that it kind of came out of this like revenge tactic, but then you realize, okay, I really enjoyed it, and you probably have a lot of fun, going into different projects and being different characters. And
Mhm.
you have a kind of rich background. You are an alumni of CBC Actors Conservatory and the Canadian Film Center. So can you talk a bit about the training that you had there?
Yeah, that was such a wonderful experience. I learned so much about myself, like outside of the business, outside of the acting, I should say. I learned so much more about the business. I also learned so much about myself in the instrument that is Ryan Rosary. I found that my confidence grew a lot in that program just because I was I was more interested and invested in wanting to take bigger, bolder choices, not being afraid to just be my most authentic self. Yeah, overall, I had like the greatest time. That those 6 months being in the CFC was probably one of the best things I'd ever done in my life.
Aside from acting and film, you also released a song and a music video a few years back. So where did like this passion for music come from? I know this song had kind of like R&B hip hop undertones to it.
Yeah, first off, I can't believe you found that. That's hilarious. Um, I'm a big fan of Donald Glover or his moniker Childish Gambino. And growing up, I was this nerdy black kid. And I remember my first year in college, I got put onto one of his songs called Freaks and Geeks. And I'm like, yo, who is this guy? Like, this guy's great. And then I started watching him on Community. So seeing this guy make music, and I've always had a passion for just creating things. I love music and I've always loved pop music. So seeing this guy do this thing and get the recognition and the acclaim that he deserved for his amazing talent, I was like, oh, if he can do it, why can't I do it? And at the time, the internet was like starting to become more of a thing, and social media was becoming a thing. So I always had this desire to want to make music. And then that song was actually a song that I wrote for an ex-partner, where we had kind of a falling out, and I was writing that for her to show her like, this is how much like I miss you and like I care for you. So sometimes through the pain, it's art. Art is comes out, and that was actually like my first time ever recording a song and a music video that went hand in hand together.
I'm sure it was a very like cathartic process for you as music often is. And
It
for
was.
those who want to check it out, it's called In My Feelings, and you can still find traces of it online. But I do hope you maybe get to go back to the music side if you want to, and if you know those creative juices are flowing in the future. But you have
Definitely.
been acting professionally for over 12 years now. So what has been the most impactful project in your career so far, and how did it change or enhance your perspective and skill set as an artist?
I would say it was the Canadian indie film Morningside. It's a film. It's an ode to Scarborough, the place where I grew up here in Toronto, Ontario. Scarborough's a city just kind of to the east of Toronto. And being in that project because I got to talk like I was a guy from Toronto. I got to act like I was, or a guy from Scarborough, to be more specific. I got to be basically act that way, talk that way. And for me, it was so important because there's so many different pockets around the world where dialects are a thing or specificity with how we engage with one another. And that project, because it was set in the place where I grew up in Scarborough, and I used to pass by Morningside all the time. Like I know the area very well. And on top of that, being in a movie with a lot of my friends, people that I actually came up in the industry with, I think that's probably been the most impactful thing because it's just like a bunch of our friends got together and we're making art and that we got to put it out to the world. I think that was the most beautiful thing I'd ever done.
What would you say motivates and drives you as an artist?
Fame, girls, and fast cars. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Telling really interesting and diverse stories, especially as a black man growing up in this industry. Aside from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and like shows like The Jeffersons, a lot of the things you were always seeing us in were gangsters and thugs. And I'm like, I'm far removed from being a gangster and a thug. I'm a dude that likes playing video games and anime, and I used to love playing Yu-Gi-Oh with my friends on the weekend. Like that was my life, you know. And it just made me realize like there's so much more out there and so many more stories to tell. So it's important for me to be a face, to be able to be represented, to a representative to the world. For example, like I said earlier, Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, seeing this guy make music and be so well received by the world. Oh, here I am, this like kind of quirky, nerdy, very big personality black guy. I want people to know, yo, you don't have to be, there's not one archetype. There's where we come in various personality types. Like go be you and exist and you can do whatever you want.
You also write and produce, and you are a co-founder of BDB Productions. So can you speak a bit about that company and like what you guys are doing with that?
Yeah, so BDB, we formed officially in 2016. We kind of knew each other throughout the industry over the years that we'd been doing it. And in 2016, we all decided, you know what? Why don't we form like a production company so that we can start filming our own projects and creating projects that we want to see ourselves in? Because at the time, a lot of us weren't getting auditions or weren't being seen for the type of roles that we wanted to go out for. So we were like, "Oh, let's get together. Let's do this thing. Let's create." And so we did a few things. One of our members, the talented Leighton Alexander Williams, he wrote kind of rewrote a rendition of The Last Days of Judas Iscariot and called it Judas Noir. So it was like a modern spin with an all black cast. We put that on stage, which was beautiful. And he also wrote a short film called Residue that did very well. And then one of our other members we shot a short film. I don't know what happened to that one, to be honest with you. And then another member, we shot another short film called Road Marks, written by Adrian Walters, directed by Brandon McKnight. And yeah, it's like we're just out here doing our thing and our projects are going to eventually start to make waves in the world, play on words, because we actually co-produced a project called It Comes in Waves with Lens Films, which comes out, which is going to be airing at the American Black Film Festival this June, on June the 14th. So, you know, we've got things kind of cooking and have been working on things and things are coming in the pipeline. I've got stuff I'm working on as well. So we've got stuff.
That's really exciting, and it's cool to be immersed in different art forms and important storytelling. And I just love to see you kind of create the change that you want to see because I know you've given quotes about it before about, wanting Canada to take more risks with the stories they're telling and giving the BIPOC community more chances, and more opportunities. So I hope to see the company continue to flourish with the work that you're doing there. We'll get into your current project, Fear Street Prom Queen, where you star as Chad. What was your familiarity with R.L. Stein's book series as well as the 2021 film series, and what made you excited to be joining this project?
Yeah, so I actually didn't really read the Fear Street books. I was more locked in on Goosebumps. That was kind of my jam. But then my good friend Kiana Madeira, she ended up getting the first three movies, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna support one of my good friends, so why not? So I ended up watching them, and I was like, oh, these are like so good, and I love horror films, and just like I love how campy, but like in such a interesting artistic way that the Fear Street movies are. So then when I got the audition for this project, I actually didn't even know it was Fear Street because when I got the audition, it just said Prom Queen. So I assumed it was just like a high school thriller drama. That was it. I was like, okay, cool. So then I did the audition, and it wasn't until after I booked it that I found out that it was Fear Street. And I was like, holy crap, I'm gonna be in the next Fear Street movie. I didn't even know they were making another Fear Street movie. So like it just kind of caught me by surprise. And sometimes I think that's a good thing where it doesn't put that pressure on you as an artist. You kind of just get to go do it with no expectations, have fun. And that's when things happen. So I was like really surprised when I found out that I got it.
You're totally correct. Sometimes it's like you have those expectations and that pressure if you kind of know what project it is beforehand. Maybe it's like Netflix and then that adds that additional weight. So you kind of got to go into it, have a lot of fun. We don't see it in the movie, but can you share details on any backstory you thought of or created for Chad, specifically his upbringing and family that helped shape who he is?
Yeah, so Chad is one of the jocks slash like pro athletes, top athletes, I should say, in the school, and he comes from a two-parent household, at least in my mind. Two-parent household. His mom and his dad very hard on him. Like we Shady Side is a very small town, as we know. It's kind of the parallel to Sunnyvale, so it's a little bit, it's the wayside across the track, so not as much money, a little bit on the darker end of the spectrum. So for me they were like the parents are kind of like, oh, we need you to get out of to like push yourself so you can get out of the situation, so go and be a pro athlete, learn all the sports. So he has a little bit of that parental pressure on him to be great and to excel as a like pro athlete to kind of get himself out of his situation.
It's really interesting to piece together his backstory because it informs you and kind of like the decisions you make, although we don't dive into it in the movie. We also see him bullying and teasing Devlin for
Hmm.
his religion. So, can you speak to a bit about that personality trait to him? He might not be the nicest guy in school.
Yeah. So I feel like with Chad, because he was an athlete, he kind of got pulled into like the athlete crowd. And so because of that, he just wanted to fit in. And with him fitting in, jocks tend to bully like the losers or the guys they view as the losers, the nerds, the dweebs. So for Chad bullying Devlin, he sees this guy who kind of lives in his most authentic self, at least at that point in his life. And so Chad can't always live his most authentic self. So in a way, he's bullying Devlin because it's like, oh, this guy gets to kind of be himself and like he has his faith and stuff. But like, I'm trying to be with these guys and I love being popular and I don't want to lose my place in the high school hierarchy. So let me just keep making fun of this guy and join in and bullying him. So I feel like that's kind of the impetus behind what Chad does and why he is the way he is.
What were the key physical and other like personality traits that you focused on well in character? And did you source inspiration from anywhere, including other maybe films or shows set in the 80s?
I didn't go specifically 80s, but I did kind of go back to a bunch of different high school themed shows just to kind of get a sense of like what those jocks were like. So, I did like Riverdale. I did, me and my friend at the time, before I got the part, we were doing a lot of the Vampire Diaries. So, kind of like the classics and just kind of getting a sense of that. Now, me personally, I work out a lot. I'm very religious when it comes to working out. It's a very important part of who I am. And thankfully, Chad was an athlete, so his chest is kind of always puffed out, and he always, he's very grounded in who he is. So he's always like standing tall. So I found that kind of helped, and especially now being the popular guy in the school, it's like, oh, like all eyes are on me. I love it. I love that everybody's always paying attention to me. What's Chad gonna get up to next? What's him and his group gonna get up to next? So I felt like that was kind of how I dove and got into that character and the personality.
It always adds a bit of levity, like that physical presence, right? It really helps with like delivering your lines or even just being in a scene and kind of, commanding that room. Can you take me through filming one of the opening scenes in class with everyone? So that's when Megan, we are discussing spoilers because this will be released after the movie, but Megan uses the fake cleaver. So how was that to shoot with everyone and kind of set the tone for the rest of the movie?
Yeah, so we actually ended up doing a rehearsal day on the Saturday before we had gone to film on the Monday, just to get a sense of what it was, because our director, Matt Palmer, knew that that was going to be the scene that really set up the tone for what we're getting into this movie. So, yeah, we ended up having our rehearsal day on the Saturday, and then we came. It was like the longest shoot day, I think, one of the longest shoot days of the filming of the movie. It was about a 16-hour day because we had to get various angles, and as you can see in the final edit, like how it's used, certain people get reaction shots, like one character throws up a little bit, other people get the reactions of like her chopping her when she like slices into her hand. So that was such a fun moment for us because it's like, oh, we know what we're coming into. We're coming into something that's going to be viewed as a very gruesome story, narrative, if you will. But then it's like, oh, it's just a joke. Oh, okay, haha, just kidding. It's not really anything. But then when things like to start to really happen, then it's like, oh no, that was really the setup for what to expect, even though it was viewed as a joke.
For you, what was it like being in that room? Like, was that the first time, like in the rehearsal too, that you kind of got to meet everyone and interact with the rest of the cast?
Yeah, that so it was on that rehearsal day that they brought pretty much all the teenagers into the classroom scene, which I always laugh at. Like I told my friends, I'm like, yeah, like the first day was pretty much like 15 cast members. And it's like 15, holy crap, that's a lot of people to have in like one scene. But I'm like, yeah, it's the setup. It's like that classic like 80s, everyone's in the same classroom. Like I love that so much. I thought it was so much fun just to be in that and just being around all the amazing, talented cast members that I got to be in that scene with and got to be in this movie with, and just getting that opportunity to kind of get to know one another. 16 hours is a long time and it's a long day. So throughout that day, we're all talking to each other, getting to know each other, finding out like what we like, what we don't like, where we're from. Yeah, it was a great, that was like such a fun, great time to start the very first day of filming.
Can you clarify if Chad is dating Melissa during the movie or is he just interested in her?
Yeah, for sure. Chad and Melissa are dating, but it's a relation. It's like a political relationship. Chad's popular, but wants to keep his popular status, prom king candidate. Melissa wants to make sure that she's stays in with the wolf pack. So it's like, let me date one of the popular guys, but she's not like really interested in him as much as I think he's more interested in her. But he also, in his mind, is like, well, if I get with this girl, like I got to keep my place in the hierarchy of the high school, and like I get to continue to being like Mr. Popular.
Because we get that moment where she kind of like brushes him off in the school hallway. So
Right.
I wasn't really sure. I think there's definitely a bit more interest in her that he has in her.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a little fortunate that he wasn't with her at all times because he was spared, unlike his friends in Judd and Bobby. What do you remember from the senior prom set and just being in that decorated space?
That giant disco ball. Oh my God. That thing was just always glittering and spinning like it. Like I kind of have, like jokingly, I have PTSD because we were in the prom hall for an entire week, a week and a half even, because obviously this movie, it takes place during the course of prom. And I remember making a joke being like, yo, we're in prom purgatory. It's promontory because every single day it's like a new scene, but it's like, is it a new scene? Are we still in prom? It just felt like we were just always there. But for sure that disco ball stood out to me the most.
You can still see it rotating in
I'm
your
seeing it
mind.
right
And
now
the
as I
thing is,
talk to
it's
you.
so dim lit, right? So it's kind of like when I'm sure you're filming during the day as well as night, but when you come out during the day, it's like this shock where you're like, oh, it's still daylight. I feel like
Yeah,
I'm in
yeah.
this never-ending evening. Oh, how about the set, the school set in general, like being transported back to the 80s at Shady Side? What was that like for you?
Yeah, the set that they got was phenomenal. It was an actual high school, an abandoned high school that they pretty much used for filming. And just kind of the way they retrofitted it to give it that classic 80s vibe, like even the desks that we were sitting at was like very old school. I was like, oh, this is like super duper dope. And again, majority of the movie takes place in the prom. So the way they had the prom fitted and like all the background with their outfits on, like everything about it was just spot on. I really did feel like I was in like in the 80s, not even just a movie, but felt like I was in the 80s. Even the school bus that they had, there was a scene that didn't get into the movie, but we shot a scene outside, kind of like it was supposed to be part of a montage, and they had a school bus there, and it was like a 80s shady side school bus. I was like, oh, this is dope, you know? So they definitely went all out on this one.
I would say the Letterman jackets, it is kind of being brought back in modern day, but the wardrobe, especially the prom attire that you got to wear, what was that like getting fitted with wardrobe for it? Because those aren't like the typical kind of two-piece and the suit jackets that you see today.
Yeah, so I actually had to go and do a fitting and get my measurements so that they could that suit was pretty much custom built to my body type. And the costume designer was showing me kind of the inspiration behind everything and was going through with all the classic 80s tuxedos and dresses. So I was like, "Oh, this is dope. I've never really been in a suit like this before." So as you stated, like it is a it's very different style than what we wear now. Like I think I had what do they call it? Like the penguin tails or something like at the back of my suit. So that was pretty dope. And I even had suspenders on mine with like my special bow tie. So yeah, it was pretty dope kind of being fitted for that. And especially the Letterman jackets. I tried to take it, but they were like, "No, we need it back." And I was like, "Ah, trying to take something from set."
That is such a shame. I think you're just like, oh, well, if there's a second movie, gotta come back and gotta get that jacket again.
Yeah.
But in the movie, Chad is around during the carnage as Lori is crowned prom queen and he helps restrain Tiffany's father. What do you think those immediate emotions are for Chad as he comes to the realization that most of his friends are gone?
Yeah, like it's life goes quick sometimes, for some people, and you don't think your life's gonna get cut short, especially in high school. So for him realizing like, oh my God, are all my friends like my friends are dead, I think. Like I haven't seen them, like, oh my God. Um, for him, it definitely was just a reminder of just be nice to people, be kind. Maybe stop picking on Devlin as much as you have been because that could have been me. Like Chad could have been one of the guys to pretty much get axed out. So, like you said earlier, maybe it was a good thing that he wasn't always around Melissa because if he was, who knows what would have happened in that moment.
It's definitely that fragility of life thing. So you're thinking that this event, should you ever, think about it or revisit the character, it would change who Chad is,
A
hopefully.
100%, 110%. Yeah, Chad would be a very different person.
This is a bit of a two-part question, but first off, are you comfortable with gore in movies?
Yeah, I'm actually totally fine because I know it's not real. The only thing, like it's so strange. The only thing that I actually struggle with is stabbings. I can't really like not in this movie because it's done in a campy way, but when it's done where it's almost hyper realized, I'm like, oh, like I feel it when the person gets stabbed. I can't do stabbings, but everything else, yeah, I'm totally fine with.
And secondly, was there a lot of care and collaboration involved on set to make sure that everyone felt safe and supported? Can you speak a bit to that?
Yeah, so as you know, there's a lot of blood and death, and the effects in this movie are very practical. So, for example, there's a part where there's a character's head in a punch bowl, and the detail to it was uncanny, and this actor was a little freaked out by looking at her own face because she's like, oh, like it was freaking her out because she's like, I'm looking at myself, but like it's not on like my head's not on my head, but my head is on my head. So it was kind of tripping her out. But there was a lot of like conversations and just like you said or asked care to being sensitive to people because not everyone has a very different level of how they can handle things. And so I guess seeing like for her to see her own face and be holding her own head kind of threw her off. but everybody was very supportive. The director was there, and like even the special effects team was like it's not real. Like you're here. Like everyone was very kind and respectable towards everyone's feelings. Like I can 100% say that and attest to that.
And it is important in a movie like this because, like you mentioned, some of it's very campy, but it is also very like visceral. Like there are quite a few scenes where I was like thrown off a little, and I'm like, oh, this is quite graphic. It's quite
Mhm.
bloody. So it's nice to know that everyone, supported each other. How was your experience working with your film's director, Matt Palmer, and the creative team, the crew behind the scenes?
Matt was a gem to work with. He is one of the greatest guys, just as a person. You could see he cares a lot about this art form and the medium that we were filming, which was Fear Street. And you could see he went into detail with the things that he wanted, especially with the script. As a guy who grew up in the 80s, you could see a lot of the influence that it affected, that came from him and that affected the movie and how it came about to be. And like seeing the final edit, I was like, oh, yeah, he's like through and through like an 80s nerd, like everything. He loved it to the T, and he was just so great to talk to when it came to certain moments in the scene. Anytime I had lines. If I felt like things didn't make sense here, I would ask certain questions, and he'd be like, "Oh no, this is what it is," and I'd be like, "Okay," so which would help me. And the crew, I have nothing but good things to say. Everybody was just so positive. Everybody was just ready to work because we're working on a horror film. Sometimes we had some night shoots. Then it could go long days, long nights. Everybody was just on point. Everybody was on top of their game. So it's like shout out to the crew for real.
I'll say it again. I've said it before, but the poster art, I just absolutely loved it for this movie. How was it to see yourself on one of those posters and kind of see the graphics that they all did?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't think I was gonna be on the poster. I remember we did the shoot day, but I was like, oh, it's just gonna be something that they just have like for whatever. And then seeing it come out, I was like, holy crap. I'm on a movie poster for a very popular franchise on Netflix. I'm international at this point. And it threw me off because as an artist and as an actor, you want people to see your art. You want the world to be able to experience it. And so for me, seeing myself lets me know, oh, people are really gonna watch this. And then the way they did the posters too was just, yeah, chef's kiss. It was. I think they said when they were shooting it, they wanted it to be inspired, kind of like the classic book cover. So they had like a whole different like templates they wanted it to look like. So yeah, that was the vibe that they got. So it was really dope to just see myself on my first like pretty big international movie poster.
So you remember that shoot day? Like what kind of cues did they give like you and Ella and the other kind of pairings in those moments?
Yeah, I can only speak on Ella and myself because it was just her and I in the room at the time. But I remember the camera was like in front of us, but then they were like, okay, you guys now look to like the top left corner. Now look to the top right corner. Now be scared, more scared, less scared, bigger screams, less screams. So we just did like a bunch of variations of what the screams would look like. And they were like, all right, guys, thanks. And we're like, okay, cool. And that was it. And then now seeing what the final product looked like, I'm like, oh, yeah, it makes sense now. I get it.
Yeah, it just must have been such a cool surprise for you, and I'm glad that it features so many different characters in the poster art leading
Yeah.
up to the movie. What can you say about the cast that you worked with, and do you have a favorite memory from being together on set?
I will say about this cast, they are some of the dopest people that I have ever got the opportunity to meet and to work with. So many different personalities that you would sometimes think, oh, this person's personality and that person, they might not get along. Everybody got along. Even though everyone had such different personalities, it meshed together. It was like peanut butter and jelly, like perfect combination. So shout out to everyone on the cast. Like they're just phenomenal and such amazing, talented, great human beings. I have two favorite moments. My first is when me and David Iacono we were playing handball together, and we were doing a best of three tournament, and I ended up winning ultimately because I'm the guy. But it was like such a fun moment for both of us to just kind of go out and play handball together. Because he's like, "Oh, I have this ball in my bag. Do you want to play a game?" And I was like, "Let's play handball." And I hadn't played handball since probably elementary school, which was kind of like a throwback for me, which is really dope. And my second favorite moment was there was a solar eclipse that happened while we were filming. And they actually took time out of the day so everybody, cast, crew, pretty much anyone that was in the building could go out and watch the solar eclipse. And to me, that was such a spiritual moment, and it was a reminder of like, oh, how small we are on this tiny planet that's spinning in the vast emptiness of nothing. To see the moon go in front of the sun, and it went from, I kid you not, full bright daylight to darkness, and it just was like, and it got cold too. That was the other part. Like I remember the temperature dropped drastically, and we all got to experience that together. It was such a beautiful moment. And while filming a horror film, I was like, oh, this is like a perfect sign for this movie that it's gonna just do wonders.
Such a core memory to have, and I love that you all got to experience that together. And over this past weekend, like we were saying, you were just in LA for this premiere event where you got to reunite with most of the cast and celebrate together. So what was that like?
Wow, I hadn't seen majority of them for over a year. Any of the ones that had come from out of town anyways. Like some of them I've run into in the city or like say what up, or we've got like, we've had like catch ups and stuff like that. But for the most part, to see so many of us together, it was such a great time because it was roughly about a year ago this time that we had finished the movie and we're like, all right, well, see you guys in like a year or whatever. And then here it is, like a year later, all of us in Los Angeles and just celebrating our win of what this movie is and what it's going to be and kind of bringing it to the world. It was, yeah, I'm thankful to have been a part of something like that with everybody and to see everybody again.
Well, you all looked fantastic, and
Thank you.
I can't wait for everyone to see it. What message do you have for the fans of Fear Street and what you hope they take away from Prom Queen?
I say make sure you guys tune in and watch it on May 23rd. You are going to love it. And I just hope you take away that, don't take life too seriously. Not everything needs to be as serious as it is. And it will make sense when you watch the movie.
You've already had a good amount of support from Fear Street fans. I know there's like this Instagram account, Fear Street Digitals, who's always keeping people up to date with new information ever since the movie was announced. So, how has it been like for you kind of taking in this already built-in support for the cast and the movie?
It's kind of trippy because I don't know who's running this account. We took, like, prime example, we took our photos, our Getty images at sometime between like 5, 6, and 8. And all of a sudden, I'm being tagged in those same photos. And like 2 hours later, and I'm like, who are you? Are you a spy? How are you so quick with it? Like the fandom is real and the support is so wanted. And I encourage it. If you're a fan of something and you want people to watch it, like do the thing, do the thing. Like shout out to Fear Street Digitals. They're doing everything amazing behind the scenes and just kind of supporting this amazing cast and this movie that I'm excited to be a part of and like really ready for everyone to see. I've seen it twice now and yeah, I'm gonna be watching it one more time on Friday. Like, yeah, shout out to the support from the fans because like this movie is something special for real.
Next up, you have Overdue. What can you share about this project?
Yeah, so Overdue is a proof of concept that two cousins and good friends of mine, Steph Small and Mackenzie Small, had kind of conceptualized together because we live in a world where we're like in our 20s, 30s, trying to figure it out, trying to figure out how to navigate this life. And it's like, we don't have money. You don't have money to go out. Bills are due. Everything's overdue. But like, we also want to be young adults and live life. So it's a show for young adults. And it takes place in the city of Toronto, at least at this time. So we kind of shot this proof of concept, which was a lot of fun to work on with everybody. And right now, I do know that they are in a like early kind of production stage with a studio down in LA trying to figure out how to conceptualize it and figure out what the next stages are for it.
That's so exciting. And I saw the concept trailer that was released and it was fantastic. And I hope that you continue to be a part of this project as it's further developed because I couldn't wait to see what kind of trouble your character's passion for cryptocurrency, green coin would get him into. And it's just like so relatable to those bordering on millennials and Gen Z. Um, so you mentioned production stages. I guessing the Instagram would be the best place to keep up to date with what's going on.
Yeah, at the Overdue, I believe it's Overdue show on Instagram.
As we kind of round things out, I know that you collect Funko Pops and are an anime and Marvel fan, as you kind of alluded to before. So, what is your holy grail Funko, and do you still collect the
You know
figures?
what? I got two of them right here. These are my two. So this is my Marvel one, and this is my anime one. This is um, my Monkey D. Luffy when he goes Gear 5. I just love that. I find him just like so free and it's very cartoony and like I grew up on a lot of like Looney Tunes and that type of genre of cartoon and I like love that style of art and how he gets and Spider-Man is my all-time favorite superhero. I will ride for this guy till the end of time, but this is specifically Miles Morales. And I remember when they had discussed Miles Morales, because the thing about Spider-Man, he could be anybody, right? But like for us, obviously, as the viewers, it's always been Peter Parker. And for me now, as a young black man, seeing Miles Morales, I was like, oh, snaps, a black Spider-Man. That's crazy. Like I never would have imagined them actually doing it. So, and again, inspired because of Donald Glover. I hope people know that. Like a lot of people don't realize that, but it was inspired because of Donald. So it's like, oh, just like a black guy who's out here saving people. And like I've always wanted to be a superhero. Like why not? But I do still collect them. I gotta like slow down though because I'm running out of space. But yeah, I love them, and I like try to be very intentional with the ones that I do collect.
I love that, and I collect them myself too. It can be an expensive hobby, not gonna
Very much
lie.
so.
So,
Yeah.
as I'm sure you understand, but would that be like the dream role for you, Miles Morales?
Yeah, if I got Miles Morales, I think I might pass out. I don't think I'd be able to breathe anymore. But yeah, so hey Marvel, if you're listening, I would love the opportunity.
Or maybe a role in Netflix's One Piece, because I know that you're a
That's
big
right.
fan of that show as well.
Or in Netflix's One Piece. That's right.
I spoke with Aiden Scott, who plays Hamapo, in
Okay.
the adaptation, and such a fantastic person, and I love that cast. Can't wait for the second season. I have one more question for you, our signature question. If you could be any ice cream flavor, which would you be and why?
Ooh, I would be a mango chocolate cookies and cream. The reason being, I'm from the Caribbean and I love mangoes. They are my probably one of my favorite fruits. Chocolate because obvious reasons, guys. And cookie and cream, I have the earliest memories of my sister sharing cookies and cream, the chocolate bar with me, and I feel like that is just like a part of who I am. I had a cookies and cream probably about 5 days ago, actually. So yeah, like I really love cookies and cream. So yeah,
I love that little fusion to end things off. Thank you so much, Ryan, for taking the time to chat. I really appreciate it.
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I had a lot of fun. Hopefully, we can catch up in the future. But until then, for all those watching, make sure to catch Ryan as Chad in Fear Street Prom Queen, which is out now on Netflix. And we will see you next time.